Welcome to video number 3 in the interview preparation workshop. Broadly speaking, there are two basic types of interview questions. Traditional questions ask for a factual answer. These can be yes or no questions such as have you ever used Microsoft Excel, or slightly trickier questions such as how did you prepare for this interview? The more challenging type of interview questions are known as behavioral or scenario type. These require you to conjure a real past situation or a hypothetical future scenario and describe your actions. A past example would be something like, tell us about a time when you struggled with your workload. A hypothetical example would be something like, what would you do if you saw a coworker stealing company property? For the past scenario questions, we recommend brainstorming a toolkit of anecdotes from your prior experiences. Spend some time thinking about situations you have dealt with in previous jobs, focusing on both challenging events and accomplishments. Of course, it's impossible to prepare for every hypothetical scenario question, so the best you can do is to brainstorm a variety of responses based on the type of job you're applying for. In other words, if you're applying for customer service jobs, you should be prepared to discuss how you would deal with a disgruntled customer. In almost every career, you can expect to be asked about navigating difficult interpersonal relationships, dealing with stressful conditions, managing multiple tasks, achieving your goals, completing your duties successfully, etc. So again, have an array of anecdotes from your past job situations, but yet also prepare how you would deal with hypothetical future situations in the type of job that you're applying for. Whatever the type of interview question, there are two other general rules that apply when you're constructing your answers. First, never start talking until you know what you're going to say. People often make the mistake of thinking that a quiet pause will make them appear uncertain. The reality is that it usually only takes a couple of seconds to gather your thoughts. If you're still uncomfortable with any silence in the room, you can say something like, that's a really good question. Or, I'm going to have to think about that one for a second before you start responding. Because the bottom line is if you start talking before you know where you're going, you might open a door that you do not want the interviewer to go through. The second general rule is to always end your answers on a firm, obvious point. Never trail off. Listen to the difference between these two answers. I have 10 years of customer service experience. I'm super organized, love working with people, great with computers, really dependable and friendly, and yeah. Versus, I have 10 years of customer service experience. I'm super organized, love working with people, great with computers, really dependable and friendly, and I know that all of these qualities will make me a valuable member of the Fred Meyer team. You can hear there in that second example that I really put a fine point at the end of my answer. Think of it like a Christmas present. You're putting a bow on it at the end to wrap it up and make it done. Make it really obvious that this is a finished answer. So don't trail off. Even if you find yourself struggling in the middle of an answer, you can always have the opportunity to end strong by wrapping it up on a definite point like that. Okay, in an earlier video, I said that I'd return to the question of the length of your answers. And one of the ways to make sure that you're answering an interview question fully and vividly is to use examples. This also goes back to that toolkit analogy. Virtually every question you are asked in an interview is an opportunity for you to paint a picture of a past accomplishment. These don't necessarily need to be from work experience. They could be from volunteering or sports or other hobbies, as long as you make them relevant, as you can see in the hiking example at the bottom of this slide. This person used their experience hiking the Pacific Crest Trail as a way of proving or documenting his or her organization, attention to detail, determination to meet goals, and so forth. This slide lists some of the more common interview questions. In your packet, there is a longer list of 30, along with suggestions on how to answer them. Let's look at a couple of the trickier ones here. Really broad, general, open-ended questions such as tell me about yourself, why should I hire you, and why do you want to work here, are all opportunities for you to hammer home your skills and experience. With that first question, tell me about yourself, you never want to tell them about yourself as a private citizen. They're not looking for your personal life story. You want to tell them about yourself as a worker, as a professional. So, you're going to talk about your experience and skills that relate to the job you're interviewing for. The same thing really goes for those two other general questions. In all cases, make sure that you're telling them how you are going to benefit them, not how the job is going to be good for you. In other words, tell them how your skills are going to help their business grow, not how the job is going to help you grow as a person, or how perfect it is for your schedule, or that you've always wanted to be a truck driver, or that the benefits sound great. Tell them what you're going to do for them, not what they're going to do for you. Regarding difficult questions, if you got fired from your last job, or you have a criminal background, or you're struggling with how to answer any of these challenging types of interview questions, talk with a member of the WorkSource staff to brainstorm your options. In general, you want to be brief and honest, and then immediately spin it to a positive. For example, well, my last job didn't end on a high note, but I'm confident that my skills will be of benefit to Safeway and I'm ready to get back to work. Or, I made some mistakes in my past, but I've learned from them and moved on. I will be an honest, dedicated employee for your company. So again, acknowledging the past, but then spinning it to a positive present and future. And speaking of the future, if you get asked about your future goals, such as where do you see yourself in 5 years, question number 5 on your screen, be honest, but also be mindful that your response should give the employer the sense that you're going to stick with this job. If you say something about planning to go back to school, for example, that might raise a red flag in the employer's mind that you're going to prioritize your classes over your work at some point in the future. Lastly, virtually every interview will end with the employer asking whether you have any questions for them. It's essential that you have at least one question prepared, if for no other reason than to demonstrate your genuine interest in the company and job. If you've read the job description thoroughly and researched the employer's website, you should be able to come up with at least one question. Some general suggestions might be, what would a typical workday look like for me? Or, What would my training consist of? At the end of most interviews, the employer will tell you what to expect next. If they don't, you can say something like, "I'm very interested in the position. When do you anticipate making a decision?" If they do tell you when you can expect to hear from them, and that deadline passes without a response, it is entirely appropriate to gently inquire. And unfortunately, this is all too common. We hear these stories every day where people have an interview and they just don't hear back. They don't hear anything. There's no firm rule regarding how long to wait, but this is something that WorkSource staff can offer advice with on a case-by-case basis. But let's say the employer said they would contact you with a decision by Friday, and it is now the following Wednesday. At this point, it's completely appropriate to send an email indicating what position you interviewed for, when the interview was, that you remain interested in the position, and that you're looking forward to hearing their decision. If you do get the job, this is the time to discuss wage and benefits unless it has been raised by the employer at the interview. Since the employer is indicated that you are their choice, you may have some negotiating power at this time. Generally, it can't hurt to ask for a higher wage if you feel that your skills and experience support that request. Mock interviews are an excellent way to fine-tune your interviewing skills. They are most helpful when you have an actual interview coming up, but we can do them at any time. Speak with WorkSource staff to make an appointment. In general, it's best to meet with a staff member that you don't already have a relationship with to make it more like a real interview situation where you're meeting a person for the first time. Another outstanding strategy for both networking and interviewing is the informational interview. This is when you contact an employer you're interested in working for to see if you can just come in and talk about hypothetical future opportunities. This does require some assertiveness, but can really pay off. Okay, now turn to your worksheet and complete the last section on common interview questions. Remember to use the suggestions on the 30 interview questions handout.